What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your NFL Week 10 picks, straight up and versus the spread. Every week here on the BLV, I give you my thoughts on every matchup upcoming on the NFL each week here on the Bottom Line View. And I break it down. I give you my straight up thoughts and my picks off the top of my head. Give you my thoughts straight up and against the spread for every single game. If that sounds good, guys, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe to the channel for more BLV just like this. Again, weekly picks here on every Wednesday night at about 9 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure to subscribe, spike that notification bell to be notified when I go live for the weekly picks. And before we get started, giving a quick shout out to Owner's Box Fantasy Sports. You guys can sign up right now, get a 100% deposit match up to $500. $500 deposit match. So that means if you deposit $500, you get another $500 on Owner's Box Fantasy. Check that out, guys. Owner's Box Fantasy. And sharing my screen real quick, I have put together a lightning lineup for Thursday Night Football. As you guys can see, I have my lineup, Cordero Patterson and Foreman, the two-star running backs in the game on Thursday night, as my lineup, taking on Marcus Mariota and Laviska Shenault and DJ Moore and Kyle Pitts. So, essentially with the lightning lineups, you pick between three different lineups. You can spin it until you get your favorite lineup, and you have to beat the computer's lineups. And for me, I got Patterson and Foreman. That is my choice for Thursday Night Football. Take advantage of that offer, guys. Sign up using the referral code BLV. The link is in the description. The link's also at the top of the live chat. So if you're here live, take a quick second, put it in the other tab, sign up as you're listening to this show. Let's get going with the week number 10 NFL picks. How did I do last week and how have we been doing this season? Let's check it out. So my picks record for the season, straight up, we are now 81-55, which is not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Overall spread record, 72-62-3, which means we're 10 games above 500 against the spread. And last week we went 9-4 straight up and 7-4-1 versus the spread. The one game, I believe, was the Atlanta game. The one tie game. I believe I took Atlanta +3 and they lost by 3, which would mean that it's a tie. So we draw even there and we continue with another awesome week. Last week, if you guys don't follow the best bets, we had our best week by far. I mean, it's pretty hard to go undefeated in the NFL if I don't say so myself. Pat myself on the back real quick for going 6-0. 6-0 against the spread last week on the best bet. So tune into that video tomorrow. Let's get started with Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football, we have the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Carolina Panthers. Atlanta on the road for this one. We recall an epic game that took place between these two teams a couple weeks ago. DJ Moore takes off his helmet, right? Gets all dramatic and crazy, and that hurts them in the game because they missed the extra point. They go to overtime. And then Marcus Mariota throws an interception and Zane Gonzalez misses the kick. And then they go back again and Atlanta drives down the field and they eventually win the game. So it was a lot of drama there. It was crazy. Who really knows who's going to win this game, honestly? It's a Thursday Night Football game. I don't know who's going to win this game. But I do think that the better team is the Atlanta Falcons. So I do think I'm going to go with Atlanta here. I could easily see Carolina winning. But just what I saw from the two teams last week, I like Atlanta more. Atlanta played the Chargers very competitively and close. Atlanta, they almost beat the Chargers. The game was a 3-point game at the end of the day. And the Panthers got destroyed by the Cincinnati Bengals. And what I would look at there is that Cincinnati, what they were able to do in that game was run the football. Cincinnati gave it to Joe Mixon, and he ran away with the game. And they were really able to gash the Carolina Panthers in that football game. I think the Atlanta Falcons can do the same. When you look back at that first Panthers matchup, there were some fluky scores by the Panthers. I don't expect the Panthers to quite have as much success as they did offensively in the second matchup. I prefer Atlanta and their coaching staff. I prefer the coaching staff and the adjustments they can make for this matchup. I believe that comes in handy in a divisional game, a second matchup in the division. I also feel like Cordell Patterson being back is a big deal. And Atlanta just generally has more to fight for in this game, as Atlanta looks to be the only competition with Tampa Bay for that division. As New Orleans kind of blew it on Monday night, Carolina is well behind, and it just feels like the two teams that might win the NFC South, it's Atlanta, it's Tampa Bay. And Atlanta does feel like they have had the success, and I feel like they have the belief that they can be a good football team. I don't see that with Carolina. Carolina, they don't trust their quarterback. Carolina doesn't trust their defense. Atlanta, I'm not sure what's going on with AJ Terrell. He could be back, may not be back, but regardless, secondary actually didn't look too bad against the Chargers last week. I thought they would be exposed and diced up a little bit more than they were, and they were able to hold that down. So I think there's some adjustments from that pass game perspective, that pass defense perspective. They run the ball, they control the ball, and they win the game on the ground against Carolina on the road. So that is my call for Thursday Night Football, guys. If you haven't already, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button. Make sure to Gronk spike that like button. And just comment anything in the comment section. Comment anything in the comment section below. Let me know who your favorite team is. Let me know if your favorite team's going to win. Let me know your favorite game of the week. Let me know a fantasy football question. Let me know your best bet for the week. Anything in the comment section below, let me know, guys. Next up, we've got to talk about the first Sunday game, which is the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are currently favored by 2.5 points. It has gone up to 3, and it's settled at 2.5. I mean, it's gone from 2.5 to 3 and gone back and forth. So there's no real tell on whether it will land at 3 or it will stay at 2.5. My guess is it will stay at 2.5, but it did go up to 3 for a second, right? So my first inclination here was to take the Seahawks. My first idea, my first just sense was Seattle's playing better football. Seattle's the better team. Take Seattle. But I have a rule. It's one of my few rules. It's rule number 12. You don't bet against Tom Brady. So I don't care who Tom Brady is playing for. I don't care how bad his team is. I don't care what the spread is. I don't care how old he is. I don't care who his wife is. I'm not betting against Tom Brady. Not this week, not next week, not any week. I'm just not doing it. Especially against a young football team in Seattle. I really like Seattle, okay? But I'm not going out on a limb and betting my money on Seattle, okay? I like Seattle, and I'm going to pick Seattle to win the game. And I may very well pick Seattle. Wink, wink to Patreon. Make sure to get on Patreon, guys. Link in the description, because I gave away my teaser of the week. One of those legs is Seattle. So I do have Seattle in a teaser. 8.5 points. Okay, but that's 8.5 points. That's 8.5 points. All right. That's 8.5 points. That's not 2.5. I'm picking Seattle to win. Why? Because I think they are the better football team and they're playing the better football. Okay, I want to reword that. I don't necessarily think they're a better team. Like, at the end of the day, could the Bucs be a better team come playoff time or come week 16 or 17? Yeah, possibly. But right now, Seattle is playing better. Seattle's running the football a lot better. There's no question about that. I mean, Walker is an absolute stud, and we knew this if you were a BLVer. You knew that, okay? Kenneth Walker is an absolute maniac, okay? The receiving core is tough to defend on islands. DK Metcalf, big, physical, and fast. Tyler Lockett, quick little guy, okay? So you got to worry about the run game. But then if you're too into the box and stuff in the box, you got to worry about Geno Smith making accurate dimes down the football field to his two speedster wide receivers. They got Noah Fant involved last week. Will Disley, can make some plays as well. And defensively, they're fast. They're one of the fastest defenses in football. They defend the run really well. Not that that matters against Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay can't run it against anybody. But what I am a little bit worried about Seattle is the way that they play a lot of zone coverage. And I do fear that with somebody like Tom Brady, there could be an avenue here if Tampa Bay can block up front, which I think they can. Seattle's pass rush, I think, is a little bit underrated, but they don't have anybody like Aaron Donald up there. And I thought the Bucs did a fairly good job of protecting Brady in the game last week. I thought the problem for the Bucs offensively in the passing game was really just that they dropped a lot of passes and they missed a lot of plays. I mean, Mike Evans had a terrible game, right? Like, these guys dropped a lot of passes. They missed on a couple plays that they could have had. I think there is an approach here that Tom could throw for 250, 300 yards in this game if he is protected. I think he can be protected. So I could see the Bucs getting after Geno, blitzing Geno, doing his thing. Todd Bowles doing his thing, because Geno, if he has struggled with anything this year, it is the blitz at times. We saw that a little bit in the Cardinals game. But my ultimate difference maker in making this pick is I think it's going to be a one-score game. And I just think Seattle makes less mistakes. I feel like Seattle knows who they are. They have a better identity. They're much better coached. They play with an energy and passion that I like to see. And I feel like their ability to run the ball and the Bucs' inability to run the ball is like the fundamental reason why I'm leaning towards the Seahawks. But I'm not going out of my way to make this a best bet just because it's TB12, just because it's the Bucs, a team coming off a big win at home, emotional victory that could really empower them to future success this year. So I am not super excited to get on the Seahawks to bet. I thought about it a lot early in the week, but I just couldn't get myself to do it. So I've got the Seahawks in a teaser. I've got the Seahawks to win, but I'm not like super pumped about it because I'll still cheer for the Bucs to win the game. That's going to be a really good game, though. Don't miss that one. Wake up early, watch that game. That's going to be a good game, and that's going to tell us a lot about the NFC, I feel like, because I think that's a really good game with two well-matched teams. Shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Looks like everybody's starting to join up. What's up, Charles? What's up, Harley Quinn, Big Al, Jonathan, Delilah, Miss Delilah, the better is in the chat. Sports Today is in the chat. Tobias is in the chat. Big Nate is in the chat. Sports Today is in the chat. What's going on, guys? And Jermari is in the chat. Thank you guys for joining. And Gronk spiked that like button, guys. Okay, next up, we've got the Cleveland Browns at the Miami Dolphins. This was a game that I bet, and I gave it to my patrons at +4. The game is in most places now bet down to +3.5. I've got Cleveland. This was one that immediately stood out to me when I looked at the games. I just think 4 points, 3.5 points, it's too many points in this game. It just is. Cleveland's a team that I think not many people respect them as much as I do, even though my team whooped their asses. The Patriots whooped their ass. But I like the Browns in certain matchups, and this is another one of those matchups that I like the Browns. I think they run the ball. I think they possess the ball. I think Jacoby Brissett, here's the thing I like about Cleveland's offense. They're so effective at running the ball. You have to respect their ability to run the ball. With that, you have to play, and if you're Miami, they love to play man coverage. And I think when they play man coverage on the outside, they're going to be susceptible to some big passing plays down the field versus guys like Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think you can get sucked in with some play action and leave some big explosive plays down the field. On top of that, Jacoby Brissett is playing, I think, very, very well and underrated football right now. He's not making a ton of mistakes, and he is able to move in some clutch situations there. So I think Miami's defense not playing very good football right now. Offensively, they are playing really well, but here's the thing. Their running game isn't that good. And when I look at a team that they don't have a great running game, I don't think they're going to be able to just expose the Browns' biggest weakness of not having enough big people on their defense. Here's the thing with Miami. Miami is a zone running team, and they don't have a lot of power to their running game. They're a team that likes to flow east-west. They're a team that likes to get things going, horizontally as opposed to downhill football, right? Old school running game. They don't have that. They're a toss to the left. They're a bubble screen to the right. They're, zone running schemes. And I think Cleveland actually does well against that because they've got fast linebackers like JOK, and they've got a defensive line that's extremely athletic. And I do feel Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney can give some issues to Tua in this game. I also expect some players to be back for Cleveland off of the bye week. Maybe David Njoku, possibly Denzel Ward. That would come in huge against Tyreek Hill, who's just on a heater, who I have in the thumbnail because he's got 300 more yards than any other receiver in the NFL. And don't get me wrong, the Miami Dolphins will get theirs, but I do feel Miami just matches up well in this game, and I think they keep it close enough to cover 3.5, 4 points. So give me the Cleveland Browns plus the points. In terms of who's going to win the game, I really haven't thought of that, to be honest with you. I could see that going either way. I do think Miami is the better team overall, so I do slightly lean that way, but I could see either team winning the game. I'm not super confident with who's going to win the game. I guess I'll lean with Miami by 3, but I don't know. This kind of feels like this week's version of the Washington-Minnesota game, where I was just so certain that Washington was going to cover, but I didn't, I kind of thought Minnesota was going to win. So I'm kind of like threading the needle there with this game, but I'm going to go with Cleveland to cover, Miami to win. Next up, we've got the Denver Broncos at the Tennessee Titans, and you guys can see my pick on the screen. I got the Denver Broncos plus the points here. I'd prefer a 3, honestly, but in terms of this just feels like a spot where Denver's going to win. And I much prefer Tennessee. I much prefer Mike Vrabel. I much prefer the defense of Tennessee. But I'm not really sure what's going on with Ryan Tannehill. And if this is Malik Willis, I definitely feel like the Titans are probably at a disadvantage and the Broncos will win. But yeah, this is not one that I'm going out of my way to bet. This is not one that I'm super excited to get on because this just feels like a low-scoring, close football game that's going to be decided by a field goal. So if I were to lean either way, I'm just going to take the team getting the points coming off the bye week that didn't play an emotional Sunday night football game, that may or may not have their starting quarterback. Like, Denver has a very good defense still. Can they be susceptible at times defending the run? We've seen a little bit of that, but not a ton. Their pass defense is locked down, though, and I think they'll overplay the run game here. Offensively, Russell Wilson is probably going to make a couple big throws in the game. He just does. He's also going to be in the rest of the game. He's probably going to get sacked 3 or 4 times. So this game feels like an under, feels like a 16-13, feels like a 17-14. So for that, I'm just going to take the points. I could see Denver pulling this one out for no reason at all, really. So I'll take Denver. Not a lot of logic there, but going to take the Broncos. Next up, got the Houston Texans at the New York Giants. This is why you have to be signed up to Patreon. I'm telling you guys, if you're not signed up to Patreon, you're missing valuable information. If you like what I do, if you're behind me, if you want to just support me, you don't even have to take my picks for all that I care. You can fade me to the end of the season, all right? The reason you should sign up to Patreon is because you missed out on 1.5 points of value with this game. That is why you sign up to Patreon. Because I bet this game Monday night or Tuesday. I can't quite recall, right? And I woke up the next day and 1.5 disappeared from this game. 1.5. So it went from 6.5 to 5. I think this game is super tight. I think this game is super close. I think the Texans are not getting enough respect in the chat right now, as I can see. I feel like the Texans, just as they did against the Eagles. I mean, we just saw them on primetime, guys. They pushed around the Eagles pretty easily. They ran the ball pretty easily. At this game, I don't think the Giants are good enough to be favored by 5, 6, 6.5 over any team in the NFL. I just don't. I think the Giants, yes, they have a good record. I don't think they're an above average team. I think they're a fairly average team. The Texans can run the football. I think the Texans will keep things simple on offense. I think they're just going to run it downhill, try to avoid those 3rd and longs where Don Martindale can pull out this blitz and that blitz and this blitz. And they're going to keep things competitive. They are. I think that's just what they do. They're not a very good team, but they play pretty competitively and they play hard. Offensively, Davis Mills will make a couple plays. Brandon Cooks will be back. I thought they got some of their other playmakers involved. I was impressed by their game plan against the Eagles. And defensively, they've got a pretty strong secondary. I think they do have the edge in the passing defense department, in drop back situations. I do think Saquon will have a big day. I definitely see that happening. But I could easily see this game being 23-20, 24-20, like even 27-24. Like, I could see that. I kind of lean towards a lower scoring game, but I just think 5 to 6.5 points is too many points. I took 6.5. I'm very happy about that, especially getting over key number of 6. 5 though, I'm still willing to take that. I think the Giants come out the winners. They're the better team, but I think the Texans stick around, especially with 10 days rest, guys. Next, we've got the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. The Bears are favored by 3 points. I've got the Chicago Bears to win the game and to cover. Chicago is playing really well on offense. They're running the ball extremely well. I love how Justin Fields is being utilized in the offense. I love how he's being utilized as this incredible runner, which he is, that sets up everything on the offense. And when you can do something at an elite level to the degree that the Bears can run the ball with their quarterback run game, it makes the rest of your offense so much easier and so much simpler because a defense has to overplay it, has to overexpose themselves to play it a certain way and play certain coverages and play certain fronts because you're so good at that. And Chicago has forced teams' hands into playing a certain fashion of football, which has not fared well for the other side. Chicago's going to move the ball. Chicago's going to score. Detroit has a bad defense. Don't read too much into Green Bay. I just watched Kurt Warner's video on the Packers talking about, breaking that 22 film down. I thought that was an awesome video. I don't usually give recommendations here, but Kurt Warner's a legend. I listen when he speaks, and that was a pretty interesting insight. So if you guys are intrigued about the Packers and how bad they are, you could check that out. But I thought a lot of that was just the Packers being really bad. The Lions made a couple plays on defense, but they're still one of, if not the worst defense in the NFL. Okay, so I like the Bears here. I just think they're more consistent on offense right now. Jared Goff, especially outdoors, can be a disaster. The running game of the Lions is pretty solid, but I'm not super pumped about it. The passing game has just taken a step down recently. St. Brown hasn't been as involved or as effective recently. And I just am not believing in this hype. I think a lot of people are going to jump on the Lions this week because of how they beat the Packers. I'm going the opposite here. I'm riding with the Bears. I'm riding with how they're playing. I'm riding with them at home. Give me Chicago here in this spot. Next up, we've got the Patreon. Okay, I've said it a couple of times, guys, but you're missing out on value and you're missing out on my best bets every week. We've been absolutely on fire the last couple of weeks. So if you do want to just check it out, you could check it out for a month. You could cancel after the month. You can cancel after a week. You can cancel after a day for all I care. Just check it out. Give it a try. I give you my bets. I give you my best bets. I give you my bets as they happen throughout the days, throughout the week. I give you early bets, later bets. And then you can also just support me as a creator, which is also something that would be absolutely phenomenal. If you appreciate all the videos and the content that I do, a great way to support me is on Patreon with just $3 a month, guys. So check that out. Patreon, link in the description. Next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jags at the Kansas City Chiefs. Gronk spiked that like button, baby. Jacksonville plus the 9.5 is the way I'm going here. Jacksonville has not lost a game by more than one score all season. Why shall it start now? Here's the thing. Everybody hypes up the Kansas City Chiefs as this, it's the almighty Chiefs. They can't be beat. They can't be beat. We just saw Malik Willis almost beat them. If Malik Willis can almost beat them, Jacksonville can surely play in this game, can surely stay in this game. And I like Jacksonville to stay in the game. I do. I like Jacksonville offensively to move the football here. The Chiefs' defense isn't very good. You could pass on them. They allow the second best passer rating in the NFL to opposing quarterbacks. You can run the ball on them, as we've seen Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, etc. I think you can run the ball. I think you can possess the ball. I think you can keep Mahomes' little booty on the bench. And on the other side of things, where I like Jacksonville's defense is I think they've got some guys that can cover in the back end decently like Campbell, and they've also got some speed in the second level, so they can defend some of these jet sweeps, some of the horizontal stuff, and then some of the screen RPO little garbage that Andy Reid has every single week. So I do think Jacksonville's defense can hang in the game, and I think their offense can actually move the ball at the beginning. Or if they're behind and trailing, they can also backdoor cover this. This is a big number. This is 9.5 points. That's a lot of points. So let's say they're down by 14. They could score a last-second touchdown. You cover the game, right? 9.5 is a lot of points. So 9.5, I'm going to take with Jacksonville. I think they're more talented than people think. They just kind of screw games up. But here they're an underdog with no pressure at all. And there's a factor to this game from the coaching perspective. Doug Peterson knows Andy Reid, right? Andy Reid knows Doug Peterson, but Doug Peterson knows Andy Reid. So there is familiarity there. Doug Peterson comes from the school of Andy Reid. So there's going to be some things that Reid does and some concepts that he has that Doug Peterson's going to be able to pick up on, and I think that's going to help Jacksonville play a competitive game here. So give me Jacksonville plus the points with no pressure to win, and the Chiefs to win the game ultimately because they're the Chiefs. No real analysis for the Chiefs side of things because they're the Chiefs. They're the Chiefs. So there's nothing really to say about that. Mahomes should win this game. Next, you've got the Minnesota Vikings and the Buffalo Bills. This game is pretty much impossible to pick at this point as we don't know who's playing. Josh Allen, Case Keenum. It doesn't really matter in terms of if I was going to bet because I would have taken Minnesota all week long. I took Minnesota, another game that I released on the Patreon, guys, at 7.5. Now it's 3.5. I bet it at 7.5. I released it on Patreon at 7.5. I said to myself when I looked at the spread, I was like, okay, so if Josh Allen plays, it's still 7 and a hook. So Kirk Cousins is really good at backdoor covering those type of deals. And then on top of that, you've got a Minnesota team that's pretty good. They only have one loss. And Buffalo just lost to the Jets, guys. So I just don't really understand like these huge numbers with the Chiefs and the Bills. You're acting like they're the 84 Niners and the 78 Steelers, and it's just not the case. They're good football teams. They're not historic football teams. They can be beat, and they can have close games. Now, that being said, Case Keenum in this game, I think in a weird way makes the Bills play better. Like, they're going to come out and play really hard with Case Keenum in there because not only is this a Case Keenum revenge game and players respect and love Case Keenum, but everyone else is going to have to elevate their game to prove that this isn't just the Josh Allen show, but it is a team. And typically we see great teams like the Bills are supposed to be surround a quarterback that's lesser and play above their level. Also a Stephon Diggs revenge game, as Steven points out here. So, I'm going to take the Bills. But I do think, regardless of the quarterback in the game, I think it's going to be a close game. Minnesota should be able to find a way to run the ball a bit on the Bills. The Bills have been exposed a little bit on the ground the last couple of weeks. Last week, the Jets ran it on them a couple times. And defensively, Minnesota is a smart defense. They don't really give you any big plays, and they do have a solid pass rush led by Zadarius Smith. I think that comes in handy here. They're going to make Buffalo earn it. So I think that I'm going to take Buffalo to win the game regardless, just for now. But I like Minnesota to stay in the game. Next, we've got the New Orleans Saints at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would not bet that at this point, though. If you missed out on 6 points already, I just wouldn't bet it right now. New Orleans Saints at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh is getting 1.5. I believe it was 2.5 for a while and it dropped. This one's really hard. I have no idea. I think the Saints are better. I do. I think the Saints are more talented. I do. So I lean their way, but what scares me is the Mike Tomlin factor. The raw meat and potatoes Mike Tomlin. It scares me a little bit. Mike Tomlin's this guy that just gets his teams up to play. And off a bye week, maybe they added a wrinkle or two to the offense. Chase Claypool gone. How does that allow George Pickens and Deontay Johnson to get more involved here? I don't really know. Defensively, the Steelers, they're tough. They're physical. I think both these teams are going to fight hard. Both these teams are tough, physical. I think the Saints have more to fight for still. I think the Saints are more talented. I think the Saints have a better offense. I think the Saints have a better offensive line. And ultimately, I'm just going to go with the Saints, but I'm not getting anywhere close to betting this game. I'll take the Saints to win a close one, though. Next, we've got the Indianapolis Colts at the Las Vegas Raiders. This is Jeff Saturday's first game, his debut game as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Who would have thunk a week ago that Jeff Saturday would be the coach? Jeff Saturday would be the coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Nobody would have thought that. Nobody, not a single soul would have thought that. I'm taking the Raiders, though. Even though I said I couldn't and I never would again. I'm not taking Jim Irsay here. I'm just not. I can't take Jeff Saturday here. I'm sorry. I have to not be a man of my word, and I have to take the Raiders here. This is the one spot where I have to take the Raiders. I just have to. Like, the Colts are an absolute atrocity, a joke. Like, they're terrible. And Big Al has a good point. The Raiders are good at home. They're better at home. So that's a good point, Big Al. I'm going to take the Raiders. I'm going to take the silver and black. They do have the better quarterback by far. They do have the better offense by far. I do think that the Colts are going to do a pretty solid job. This is a defense that can slow down Jacobs in the run game, and Stephon Gilmore will give Adams a tough time. So I don't expect this to be easy. I'm actually thinking about taking the 6. I think that might be too many points for any team, versus the Raiders, but it feels really, really gross. So I'm going to take the Raiders to win the game. Out of faith and out of just want to, I'll take the Raiders to cover as well, but I'm not too I'm not too excited about that one at all. This is like if the Raiders lose this game, I know they've been saying McDaniels is going to keep his job. McDaniels going to keep his job. If McDaniels and the Raiders lose this game, and as I've said, it's not McDaniels' fault entirely. It's not even close to entirely his fault. I think he's done a fine job. Has he made some mistakes? Sure. But there's a lot of issues with the Raiders, more than just the coach. If he does lose this game, though, to Jeff Saturday and a 30-year-old never-before play caller, he's in trouble. He might get fired. So this is a big game emotionally for the Raiders. I think they win this game, and I think they cover. Next, the Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams. I was thinking early in the week, take the Cardinals, take the Cardinals, take the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been playing better. They just look visually more appealing with my two eyes than the Rams do. Every time I watch the Rams, I can't do it. I mean, their offense is horrendous. They can't run the ball. They can't block. Stafford's struggling to get it out, because teams are getting consistent pass rush. Everyone knows who to cover. His name's Cooper Kupp. Double him all game. What do they got? Defensively, the Rams are fairly solid. I do think they do a good job against Kyler Murray most of the time. They have a pretty strong interior defensive line, a couple players in the secondary. Early in the week, I was thinking this might be a best bet. This might be a best bet. I don't know what's going on with the quarterback situation of the Rams right now with Matthew Stafford being in concussion protocol. So I don't really know whether I can rightly make this a best bet, if I can rightly, look at this game. I did, as soon as I heard that news, I took the Cardinals +3. I did. As soon as I heard that news, I hurried to my sports book. I laid a little bit of money on the Cardinals, I'm not going to lie. But there is some worry about Stafford, and I could see the Rams winning. I could see the Cardinals winning. I'm not really sure either way. I do think the Cardinals look to be the better team recently, but that's not with a lot of confidence because I think the Cardinals also have their fair share of problems. So this is one that I have no idea. I think D-Hop didn't play in the first game. Definitely will help be a factor in this game. D-Hop at least makes Jalen Ramsey, travel with him, or it makes the Rams have to respect that guy so that Kyler Murray can open up the rest of the offense. Kyler Murray's ability to scramble and create plays out of nothing is definitely a big factor here between two teams that could struggle with traditional offense. And the running game of the Cardinals, I think, is better than the Rams. So again, I think the Rams, another thing that worries me about picking the Cardinals, although I'm saying all these positives and these things that I like for the Cardinals, another thing that worries me is just the history of the matchup. The Rams have mostly dominated this matchup dating back to late last year. So it's tough to pick. It's tough to bet overall. I'm going to take the Cardinals for now, but I don't really know what's going on there. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers. Sorry about that, guys. There's just a lot of games this week where there's a lot of question marks, and that sort of sucks to talk about on a Wednesday here. And that's the problem with picking games on Wednesday night. But that's the way we got to go here on YouTube. Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. This is one where I've heard the so-called pros talk about taking the Packers because they quote-unquote have to here. I don't have to do anything. Okay, I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, I don't really care if you resurrect Vince Lombardi and you put him on the sidelines. Actually, I might care a little bit because that would be pretty cool. But I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are way better. There's just not even a question in my mind. The Dallas Cowboys are a good football team, a legitimately good football team. And what are the Green Bay Packers? A legitimately bad football team. Okay, I understand it's 5 points at Lambeau Field with Aaron Rodgers against a team that he traditionally owns, okay? But this is a different Cowboys team. Why? Well, the biggest reason in particular for this matchup is that Mike McCarthy is coaching the Cowboys. That's a big deal to me because Mike McCarthy knows Aaron Rodgers very well. And there's a big motivation factor for his football team coming off of a bye, getting healthy, getting ready for this game, getting suited up, right? They're going to want this game for their coach, a coach that's done very well and had a very underrated season so far, right? So Mike McCarthy, he's going to go into Lambeau Field, right? And he's going to have a game plan, and he's going to have a plan to win this game. And the players are going to fight for him. I also look at that defensive side of the football for Dallas, and I say, just how are the Packers going to consistently move the ball in this game? Sure, some people may say, well, running would be the way to attack the Cowboys. But the Cowboys know that, right? Dan Quinn's not an idiot. He's going to stack the box. He's going to play man-to-man on the outside. He's going to force these receivers to beat Trayvon Diggs on islands. You know, he's going to stack the box early. He's going to be all over with his fast linebackers and fast defense, swarming these bubble screens and, you know, quick little swing passes to Aaron Jones. These toss plays. I mean, Matt LaFleur's offense is as predictable as anything. I mean, it's terrible. So I've got the Dallas Cowboys here. I think they run the ball offensively. I think the biggest loss that the Packers could have sustained is Rashawn Gary. The guy's an absolute stud. Without that guy, I think Dak Prescott feels comfortable. And in the back of the Cowboys' minds, these players, they've also heard the rumors about Odell Beckham Jr. And you don't think that those rumors may not have an impact on how the Cowboys feel, that confidence in this game, that confidence that our franchise, our ownership, our management believes in us, that we're in talks with Odell to come to Dallas and go on a Super Bowl run. All of these things matter to me. I think the mental state of the Cowboys is strong and powerful. And I think the Packers is weak and fragile. So despite all the matchups in the favor of the Cowboys, what really matters to me is that mental makeup. And to me, Dallas has got it. The Packers don't. Give me Dallas to cover, Dallas to win. The Los Angeles Chargers at the San Francisco 49ers. This game is a big game. San Francisco, Sunday Night Football, Kyle Shanahan, Brandon Staley, Run CMC, Justin Herbert, Niners favored by 7. Will not be a best bet because 7 points against Justin Herbert is just too many points because that guy can backdoor like nobody's business. But I will take the Niners 100% to win this game, and I will be probably on the Niners money line. I just look at Brandon Staley run defense versus Kyle Shanahan run offense, and I don't know if there's a bigger mismatch in the NFL, period. I think the Niners are a very talented team. There's still people doubting them, thinking they're not that good, thinking their record is just how good they are, which is average. I think in this game, the Niners prove they are monsters of the East. They are beasts, I shall say, of the East, right? They are beasts in that NFC. And I think the Niners run all over the Chargers. McCaffrey has a huge game on prime time. And I do think the Niners defense, getting a little bit healthier off of a bye week, scheming some things up for Justin Herbert, you know, makes life difficult for Herbert in moments, gets a pass rush in moments. Nick Bosa has a couple sacks here and there, forces a couple stops. Jimmy's efficient with the ball as always, doesn't have to force it. They play through the running game. And I wasn't super impressed by the Chargers passing game against Atlanta. They weren't really pushing the ball down the field the way they need to. I think if they're a short little dink and dunk team, I think that plays into the hands of the Niners because the Niners do have Fred Warner and they do have those safeties that fly with their heads cut off. So they've got Hufanga, they've got Jimmy Ward. Those guys are, psycho. So I've got those guys on defense, and I've got the Kyle Shanahan running game against the Chargers all day, every single Sunday. Give me the Niners to win, and I will take them to cover, okay? but I'm not betting it. There's no chance I'm betting 7 points. 7 points is too many points for Justin Herbert to backdoor. I'm not that stupid, okay? I'm just not. Next, Monday Night Football. Washington Commies taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a line where people are like, well, the Eagles, they're this good, and they're the best team in the league. 11 points is just disrespectful. 11 points is disrespectful. Again, guys, this is an NFC East divisional game on Monday Night Football. And what does Washington do well? They stop the run. That's what they do well. I mean, their offense is a little bit of a disaster, but 11 points is just too many points, especially when you look back at last year. I think they played them pretty competitively. Washington did. I feel like they have a decent handle on this Jalen Hurts run stuff because Cam Newton was such a big runner with Ron Rivera. So Ron Rivera has inherent knowledge of that sort of stuff. So I feel like that gives him an upper hand in that regard. But I just think Washington has some big uglies that make life difficult on every run attack. So I think because of that one matchup alone, Washington keeps this one within 10 points. 11 points is just too much. It's just too much to me in a divisional game. So I've got the Commanders to cover, especially after how the Eagles looked on Thursday. But I fully expect the Eagles to win. They're the better team. They're the more talented team. They should definitely win this game. Jalen Hurts has proven that he can throw the ball when you pursue the run game, and I think he'll be able to do that. But I think this one may start off a little ugly, just as it did against the Texans, and Washington just plays with a lot of fight. So I'm going to give the Eagles the victory, but I'm going to take the 11. 11 is just too many points. It's disrespectful. Even if they cover, I won't even feel bad for taking the Commanders, because that's just too many points in a divisional game. So give me the Commanders plus 11. Those are my picks for week number 10, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for weekly NFL picks on every Wednesday. Gronk spike the notification bell for the latest upload and to be notified when I go live. And don't forget to check out my best bets tomorrow. We were 6-0 last week, guys. 6-0. We are trying to continue that. Check out Patreon. Check out Owner's Box Fantasy. Sign up with the referral code BLV with that link in the description, with that link at the top of the live chat. Appreciate everybody that joined the chat. Tessa, Chris, Big Al, Delilah, Jonathan, Steven, Caesar, Singh, Aaron, Logan, Raya, Holden. Is it Raya or Rhea? Sorry. Silva. Charles. I probably said his name already. Miss Harley Quinn. Shout out. Sports Today. Shout out to all the people in the chat. Thank you guys so much for watching. Ruben. Peace.